Okay, and so the width of this thing then is 10.28. Okay, so those are your two answers that we're looking for. All right. All right, number 2. A company's weekly revenue in dollars is given by the formula R of X is equal to 2,000X minus 2X squared, where X is the number of items produced during a week. What amount of items will produce the maximum revenue? Okay, so a couple things here. I want to define what these letters are. So I know that X is standing for items, correct? And then R of X is standing for, right, the revenue, the money. Okay? Now it says here, what amount of items will produce the maximum revenue? Now, you may remember learning about this word, maximum. That's a key word when you talk about quadratics, right? Which tells you your quadratic is going to do something like this. Correct? Where you want some sort of maximum point, some point up there. Now, how do you find that point up there? Do you remember how to do that? First of all, what is that point called? Yes, it's called a maximum, but what's another word for that? Right, the vertex. Okay, and so to find the vertex of this thing, remember, it is negative b over 2a. Okay, and then to get the other one, you plug negative b over 2a into the original. Okay, so let's start by finding this one first. This part right here, this negative b over 2a. Now, careful, careful, careful with your equation here. Okay, you've got 2,000x minus 2x squared. Okay, so just off to the side, I'm going to label what all of them are. What a, b, and c are, that is. Okay, so what is a here? Okay, did you say 2,000? Okay, no. Careful, careful, careful. Remember, a is always the number that's in front of the x squared. So in this case, it's negative 2. B is always the term that has just a plain old x hooked onto it. So in this case, it's going to be 2,000. Okay, and C, do you have just a plain old number, a constant? No, that's 0. Okay, which is irrelevant anyway for our formula. However, okay, so let's do the negative b over 2a. So negative b, so that's negative 2,000, all over 2 times negative 2. So that's negative 2,000 over a negative 4. Okay, and what is negative 2,000 divided by negative 4? 500. Okay, now we've got that. Now we need to get the other part of the vertex. Okay, so negative b over 2a. And so we're going to plug negative b over 2a into the original. Okay, here's the original equation. Here's x. So here we go. We've got 2,000 times 500 minus 2 times 500 squared. Okay, so when you plug that in, what answer do you get when you plug all that in? We get 500,000. Okay, so the vertex of this thing, or the maximum of this thing, is this. However, you're not done. Okay, because now you have to determine something here. It says here, what amount of items will produce the maximum revenue? Okay, items. What? Okay, so over here, we had X stands for items, correct? And R of X stands for revenue. So when you look over here, which one of these is the items? Which one of these numbers is the maximum? That's right, because remember, X, and this was R of X. Okay, so this is the items, and this is the revenue. So the answer that you're looking for, if this was on a multiple choice test, for example, would be 500. That's what I'm looking for. 500 items would give you the maximum revenue. Okay? All right, let's look at another one. All right. The height in feet of a bottle rocket is given by the following equation, where t is the time in seconds. How long will it take for the rocket to return to the ground, and what is the height after 2 seconds? Okay, so we've got 2 questions here that we need to be answered. Now, I'm going to go ahead and define what these are again. So we've got here that t stands for time, and then h of t stands for height. Okay. And yes, they're using h and t, but as always, you can always go back and relate this to x and y if you needed to. Okay. Now, I'm going to draw a picture for this to give you an idea of what's going on here. How long will it take for the rocket to return to the ground? Well, I don't know about you, but any rocket that I've seen always goes up. And what goes up must always come down. So you've got some sort of little rocket here, and forgive my artwork. Okay. Okay, and so this rocket is going to go up in the air, and then eventually it's going to come back and it's going to hit the ground, correct? Right here. All right. So what do you think we're going to have to do to solve this? What is this right here if it's hitting the ground? Okay. And maybe you may have figured it out, maybe not. However, this point right here represents the x-intercept, guys. And how do you find the x-intercept? The quadratic formula, yes. So we need to find the quadratic formula of this number right here. Okay? And so that's going to take us, that's going to handle the first question for us. How long will it take for the rocket to return to the ground? So it goes up. When it hits the ground right here, that's the point I'm looking for. And then we want to know, what is the height after 2 seconds? And that question is actually a lot easy. That's really easy to answer. Okay, so let's start our quadratic formula here. We have this equation. We've got 160t minus 16t squared. Careful again, let's label. What's A, what's B, and what's C? A is negative 16, because that's in front of the something squared. B is 160. And C is 0. Okay, so here we go. The quadratic formula, negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Okay, so negative b, negative times 160, plus or minus, I'm kind of running out of room here, so bear with me. B squared, so 160 squared, minus 4 times negative 16 times 0, all over 2 times negative 16. Okay, so we'll clean it up here. We want to clean this up, the outside, the inside, and the bottom. So the outside will clean up to give us a negative on 60. Plus or minus the square root of, what's 160 squared minus 4 times negative 16 times 0? Okay, and that's going to give us 25,600 all over negative 32. Okay, now remember, you're going to take on 2 answers here. You're going to have one with the positive case and one with the negative case. So let's do the positive case first. We're going to type that in. Remember to use a double parenthesis here. So we've got negative 160 plus the square root of 25,600 divided by a negative 32, and we get 0. And that actually is a good sign. That makes sense. I'm going to show you why in a second. Okay? And then the other value here, we've got negative 160 minus, and we get 10. Okay? Now, let's go back to our little diagram here for a moment, if you will. This rocket, where it's at right now, do you agree that's its starting position? If you are about ready to go run the 5K marathon, okay, and so you all start at a certain spot, right? You're stopped. Okay, this is the start, and since this is an x-intercept, doesn't that make sense that that should be a 0? Yes, because that's where it started at. And the next thing you know, you lit a match and the rocket went up, and next thing you know, it comes back down. And it came back down, and the other x-intercept is 10. So in this case, how long will it take for the rocket to return to the ground? It took 10 seconds to do that, because we're talking about time in seconds. Okay? So the first question, so I'll just put that over here, question 1, was 10 seconds. Okay? Now, the second question is really kind of easy. They ask us, what is the height after 2 seconds? Okay, so we want to know now what is height. Here's our equation. Go back up here. It's a little bit more neater up here. Okay, height after 2 seconds. So what do you think you're going to do with that 2? Right, just plug it in for time. So you've got h of t is equal to 160 times 2 minus 16 times 2 squared. Okay, so when you plug that in, let's see what we get. 256. And we're talking about height and feet, so 256 feet. Okay? So the nice thing here, honestly, what really brought this whole question together was this picture for me. I know that a rocket, it went up into the air, and then I know it eventually had to hit the ground, because what goes up must come down. Okay? And for all you smart Alex out there that are saying, oh, hey, what if it got caught in a tree? Okay, we're ignoring that for right now. Okay? What comes up must come down. And so then I knew that point right there was when it was going to hit the ground. Okay? And so from there, I knew since that was an x-intercept here, I had to use a quadratic formula to get that point. Okay? All right. Example number 4. A foul ball leaves the end of a baseball bat and travels according to the formula h of t is equal to 64t minus 16t squared, where h is the height of the ball in feet and t is the time in seconds. How long will it take for the ball to reach a height of 64 feet in the air? How long? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and clearly label what's going on here. You've got t, which stands for time, and you've got h of t, which stands for height. Correct? Yes. Okay. Now, let's answer the question. How long will it take for the ball to reach a height of 64 feet? Where is 64 going to go in this formula? Right, and where h goes. Okay? The h of t. So you're going to have here, so this is the formula that they give you. Okay? And so we're going to plug in. We know that the height is 64. Okay, so now what are you going to do from here? We want to know how long will it take. How long meaning the time. Time is t. So how do you solve for t? Quadratic formula. So to even start this thing, what do you need to do? Move the 64 over and get it set equal to 0. So I have 0 equals negative 64 plus 64t minus 16t squared. Okay. Now look, if you're feeling overwhelmed with this, guys, this is going to take practice. Okay? So just take one thing at a time and you'll be all right. Now, let's clearly label what A, B, and C are and apply the formula. A, B, and C. So A is negative 16, B is 64, and C is negative 64. Okay? So our formula, I'm not going to write it down again. Refer back to the other problem. So here we go. Negative b plus or minus square root b squared, so 64 squared, minus 4 times negative 16 times negative 64. Okay, all over 2 times negative 16. Okay, so then we clean this up. Outside, inside, under. So we've got negative 64 plus or minus the square root of. Let's see what that equals. 64 squared minus 4 times negative 16 times negative 64 gives us 0. That's nice. All over negative 32. Okay. So remember, you're going to take on how many answers here? 2, because you've got the plus and the minus. So we should have 2 cases here. So we've got negative 64 plus the square root of 0, which is 0, divided by negative 32, and we get a positive 2 as one answer. And then when we take on the minus case here, what are you going to notice happens here? Right, you're going to get the same exact answer, 2. Okay, so how long will it take for the ball to reach a height of 64 feet? It will take 2 seconds. Time is in seconds, yes. Okay. And this is just the same thing. Remember, it's okay to see that you get the same answer twice. Okay, so the answer is 2 seconds. All right, in the next video, you're going to try 2 problems and see if you can kind of make some sense as to what's going on with these quadratic equations, okay?